of the world in different time zones. I am Shakira Mohammed of Trinidad and Tobago, a teacher for the past 17 years. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our 250th edition of our ICC Thought Leaders Forum. And we wish to sincerely thank all of you who have contributed in whatever way to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora global project. For 249 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. And in the past 4 years, 9 months, and 3 weeks, we have featured 1,219 presenters from all parts of the world speaking on 249 topics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a weekly forum being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. And in order to continue this weekly program and to make it bigger and better, we are kindly asking for suggestions and volunteers. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials, and you can contact Dr. Kumar Mahabir for details. I'll introduce our moderator today, who is Shalama Mohammed, the co-director of this ICC Zoom platform, who is a business teacher and researcher from Trinidad and Tobago. She obtained her master's degree in business psychology from Franklin University in the USA. Shalama, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shakir. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste and a warm welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for choosing to be here with us. This program is being recorded on Zoom and live streamed on the YouTube channel of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. So welcome to all of you on YouTube at this time. To avoid intrusions from trolls, we've decided to allow members of the audience to view and participate via YouTube only. Thank you so much for understanding and for your cooperation. Today we are talking about Steelpan in the music of the Indian diaspora. Originating from Trinidad and Tobago, the steelpan is the only musical instrument invented in the 20th century. Indian diaspora musicians, such as the legendary Jit Samaru, have also contributed to the evolution of the instrument, incorporating Indian melodies and rhythms into steelpan compositions, adding layers of complexity and innovation to the art form. But as an Indo-Trinidadian, he represents a tiny minority. Today we are asking, in communities with significant Indo-Caribbean populations, to what extent do steelpan performances serve as a symbol of cultural identity, bridging the gap between the Caribbean heritage and Indian roots? So let's hear from our speakers today. And we begin with Mr. Devin Ramuta. And for those of you all who've been looking at the program for quite some time, you all know our theme music, and that theme music is really that of Devin on the Pan. He's based in Canada, and he is the world's leading Guyanese solo panist. He's a music teacher and York University alumnus. He's in high demand globally and accepts only a limited number of local bookings. So we're very happy to have him today. Welcome, Devin.
Thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. So a little bit about myself. I'm very excited to be here today to represent Indo-Caribbeans in Canada. A little history about myself. So my dad and I run a music store here, but Steelpan has always been a part of my life since I was in high school. I was actually taught steelpan by a Jamaican teacher in our high school. And from then, because of my musical background with Indian instruments, I took a liking to steelpan and was able to merge the two in my own style. So what I do primarily, I specialize in Bollywood. I'm trained in Indian classical as well, so there's a nice fusion there when it comes to pan. But I also, when I perform for different demographics, I tend to mix classic dancehall, soca, Bollywood, reggae in progressions throughout the entirety of my set. So a little bit about me today. I'm just going to show about 2 or 3 videos to kind of represent what I do. And I'm going to share the screen. I'm just going to request a confirmation that you guys can also hear the audio once I share it. And we're going to start with this. So I'll just do a bit of a test. Let me know if...
Yes, we're hearing it.
Okay, all right. So here's where I wanted to start. Actually, one second. Well, this is an example of Bollywood steelpan remixed with like West Indian Bollywood. This particular one is Kya Hua by Raymond Ramnarayan. Sorry, not Raymond Ramnarayan, but it's remixed to have a Caribbean, Indo-Caribbean beat, and this is what an example of that fusion. right, and another video I'm going to show you today is so this is an actual Bollywood song. It's a more modern Bollywood song, not a classic, but this is what Dilbar Dilbar sounds like on Steelpan, the way we do it. All right, so if, you guys can still hear me as well, right? When I'm speaking, okay, perfect. So what that there is, it's a combination of solos. The way I relate to Steelpan, I'm not of Trinidadian descent, but in Guyana, there's a prevalence of Steelpan actually in the form of orchestras and bands. In Canada, though, there's actually quite a few renowned Steelpanists, soloists. So the element that I bring to Steelpan is basically the infusion of solo, a musical background with Indian classical as well. So in Dilbar there, for example, I'm able to do these type of solos to connect the hook, and that's sort of what I'm known for here at least. And just to represent the last part of what I talked about. So I am just strictly a soloist. So I usually travel the world and I do a few local bookings. When it comes to weddings, the demographics are usually divided. So what I tend to do is, for this particular audience here, I'm going to show you there's a dancehall and Bollywood fusion, a popular dancehall song infused with a Bollywood song on the same beat, and then there's a slight and gradual progression in tempo, and it usually ends off with chutney or chutney soca. So this video is just under a minute, but it's kind of captures that entire progression. So here it'll start with a dancehall song, it'll go into another dancehall song, a Bollywood, and then it ends off with a chutney. This is basically an hour set compressed into a minute. Right, I'm just gonna stop sharing there. So okay, it came back to me, right? So the reason I started off the presentation like this is because I'm doing Steelpan, classically trained with simply. The way I relate to it is definitely very I just saw the comment. The way I relate to it is I don't want to say fun, because obviously all parts of Steelpan are fun, but a more kind of engaging a way to relate it to not only the older demographic, but the youth as well. That's kind of what I focus on. Like, for example, now with the beautiful West Indian music that's out of Trinidad every month, they take classics of Bollywood, they remix it with a popularized beat, new beats from like classic dancehall beats or even new beats that they create. And then this allows two different demographics and age groups to connect, because you bring back the classics, you bring a rhythm that everyone can enjoy and relate to regardless of the age. So I try to capitalize on that when I perform. So hopefully that sums up my Steelpan experience so far, and I'm happy to take any questions that you or the viewers may have.
So that was short and sweet. I want to thank you very much. In the absence of information from our YouTube audience, let me just ask you this. What is the response of non-Indian audiences to your renditions, such as Kya Hua?
Interesting question. So I'll just tell you briefly. So I play for a lot of large corporations all around Canada and America. So when I do those events, I actually do not do Bollywood. Like, I'll tailor the set to the event. But there are definitely instances in weddings and cross mixed weddings where people hear it because of the rhythms that, like I mentioned, that these remixed tracks are on. People enjoy them. I find that that aspect of it is a way that brings people together. Even obviously they wouldn't know the actual song, but that allows it to be interconnected.
Okay, and do you have albums on sale?
Sold out. I did do two. I did a soca Spanish CD and I did a Bollywood CD. Unfortunately, they're all physical copies a few years ago, so no more of those. But I am working on a digital Steelpan album this year.
And what was the response to you said the Bollywood album? Can you compare the two? Which one sold out first?
Well, the Bollywood sold out first, but it was released 2 years before the Steelpan. But yeah, let me put it into perspective. So different scenarios call for different things. Obviously, out of Trinidad, they have the best steel panners for soca and Spanish and those types of things. Where the Bollywood comes in handy is their specific songs that a lot of people remake the classics on Steelpan, but there's certain songs that are trending or new or Bollywood. Because I'm exposed in the nature of my business, I'm exposed to like a large West Indian and Indian clientele daily. So I'm always aware of songs that are trending that may not be songs that that are necessarily like staples in West Indian households. Those songs have a very nice reach once they're done on Steelpan and done in the way that we do them here. So the Bollywood ones did sell out first, but hopefully that gives a little insight into the different demographics. Like a reception, West Indian wedding reception would definitely play the soca Spanish Steelpan, whereas the Bollywood one would be more elaborate. Like people would have that as the background in music for galas or concerts, or when they bring an Indian singer and they're getting everyone in the mood for the performance, things like that.
Okay, great. Dr. Mahabir had a question.
Yes, fantastic presentation and performance, Devin. Many people in Trinidad knew you. I had seen you at the Diwali Nagar some time ago. You had performed there, probably more than once. And also, we had seen you at the Central Bank, I think, sometime. So where do you see yourself in next 20 years?
As a steel panist, progressing the way I do, honestly, I enjoy it. So the reason I take a limited amount of bookings and things like that is because I'm very selective with the performances I take. Not that I cover tell people, because I want to enjoy it. As for myself, I only look forward to performances and growing in the way that resonates with me. So honestly, just about continuing on the path that I'm on with being able to take these songs and be able to create that type of ambience with specific performances and events that I want to. Steelpan is actually not my primary instrument. I'm classically trained in a few other instruments. So the growth of Steelpan for me would be for more personal enjoyment and also the ambience that I can perform with someone. There's other instruments that I see myself being 5-10 years down the line extremely adept and skilled with. At this level of Steelpan, I find if I grow consistently the way I am, I would be happy with that.
Have you thought of starting a band, even though it's a 3-member band with various instruments, so you would have more diversity of sounds?
Okay. So a little background on me, because the viewers might know. So this store has been in its entirety for about 4 years. Prior to that, though, I went to school for teaching, so I'm an English teacher, but I was also a full-time performer. I would do almost 180 events per year with different instruments and stuff. So I was a part of many bands, different orchestras I was a part of. I played with a lot of different bands, a lot of different singers and stuff like that. So now that I've got into the solo act, I've actually, I also do solo harmonium. I'm a tabla player as well, a dholak accompanist. So I'm more or less associated with, but starting my own band to represent that, that's something I would have done prior to the store, which I used to do actually.
Great. And you have seen the blending of music and musical instruments with Mangal Patisa and the Pantar and so on. So I was thinking that probably you may want to go in that direction sometime.
You know what? Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying, there's a good friend of mine actually, Virendra Kapi Prasad. He is an excellent, definitely the best harmonium and keyboard player I've heard out of Trinidad. He is the father of KI and the band. So Him and I actually do collaborative videos. So he's a master in his craft, keyboard and harmonium, and I would do Steelpan along with him. So that we've done a few times. So that may be the I guess closest sort of response to what you're asking for. We do have videos and things published of those collaborations.
Yeah, good.
All right, excellent. If there are any questions from our panelists, feel free to ask them now.
Are you training anyone, Devin?
Yes. Like I mentioned, definitely people in this chat and people listening would be more qualified in the theory of Steelpan for sure. But the reason I train someone specifically because obviously there's a lot of inquiries a lot of events I can't make. I'm not able to take on. So I have someone that I send out that can at least fill in for all the ones that I'm unable to accept.
Is there a good lucrative market in Canada for solo performance of steel band?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously not the primary reason, but that's definitely an excellent byproduct of it. It's a niche for sure, and then not only pan because there's amazing pan bands. Caravan in time, you'll see all of them come out in like 80, 100 pieces. But soloists, there's a niche, and specifically for different types of genres. So it's a niche that's very appreciated over here. I've been very blessed in the last 8 years to have been on pretty much the highest stages of both corporate events and like West Indian events. So it's been great in both regards. Yes.
Now, looking at the demographics, what percentage of Afros would invite you to do solo performances at their weddings or concerts and so on? Who are the people who really invite you in terms of percentages?
In terms of one of my just personal preference is West Indian weddings and audiences when I do these solo acts, just because, as I mentioned, the reason I take bookings is what resonates with me. So I don't mind any type of music, of course, but there are some naturally that resonate and enjoy the most. So when it comes to receptions like that, I would say 95% West Indian, Trinidad, Guyanese couples mix, sometimes Trinidad Spanish, Guyanese Jamaican, like kind of Caribbean encompassing along with South America. So that's what I usually do. Obviously, I get invited to a lot of events. Caravan in time, there's a lot of people that reach out to me for those specific events. I'm partnered with 2 corporations around that time, so I usually do their events, and those are Afro dominant for sure. But again, my sets would be tailored to that, so I wouldn't do the same genres that I would in a West Indian wedding. That's when I go heavy into trend and soca. I do classic dancehall, even top 40. Over here, there's a lot of radio songs that everyone knows. And I shouldn't say radio, but like Spotify trending songs and things like that.
Good, great.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much, Devin. It's been lovely chatting with you, and thanks so much for your time today with us. Wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you so much. Before I go, I just wanted to pay homage, actually. As I mentioned, as you can see, like I do Steelpan for this type of entertainment reason. But there's so much inspiration for me personally that comes out of Trinidad. I'm not going to name Steelpan specifically, but I do hold dear to my heart everyone that's an inspiration to me in the Steelpan world, and all of them come out of Trinidad. So I'm actually pretty excited and honored to be a part of this this meeting here today, and I appreciate the invite very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we move on now to our second speaker, and this is Dr. Savitri Ramprasad. She holds a PhD in Cultural Studies and a Bachelor's in Fine Arts in Performing Arts with an emphasis in Steelpan performance from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. She's a former vice captain of Nada Sangama Steel Orchestra, and she's performed in panorama competitions. Lovely to have a lady speaking today.
Hello, good day.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So you've done a very nice job of introducing. I just wanted to add on just one little bit so that it would give you some directive to what my presentation is going to be, the slant it will take. So yes, I hold a PhD in Cultural Studies. My PhD research area is Steelpan vibrations, cognition and emotional wellness, interplay and adult wellness. I look at how the vibrations of the Steelpan influences adult wellness regardless of racial background or any sort of subgroup influence. Yeah? So I am going to pull up my PowerPoint for you now, and I'm doing the shared screen. Are you seeing my full
Yes.
screen? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll keep it on this view so that I can flip through. So when I was sent this theme, Steelpan Music in the Indian Diaspora, immediately I paid attention to the fact that I needed to mention that Steelpan is an instrument, music is separate, and geographic location of where the music originates is a third category of things. So this is a very wide statement, and for that reason I've put in an outline here of what I'm going to present to you. The first thing I'll be looking at is what exactly is Indian music, because you're looking at Indian music in Pan, but you have to understand what is Indian music in the first instance. And I will deal very briefly with the region, characteristics, instrumentation, and geographic influence. I'm also going to look, of course, at Indian steel bands based in Trinidad. I had a section of Indian music in Pan, which I very quickly took out just before this presentation because I think someone else is going to cover it. And I'm going to look at something that has not really been ever visited before, which is microtonal sound in Steelpan. Yeah? So moving right along. So India is a very large place, as we all would appreciate, and there are two distinctly different types of music. There's North Indian music and there's South Indian music. North Indian music is called Hindustani music, and is very much influenced by the number of invasions of India by the Mughals as well as Persia. So their raga system is quite different. It's very contracted, and it has a different feel and way of producing the Hindustani ragas. South Indian music is called Carnatic music, and Carnatic music, their rag structure is not really altered by the invasions, although you do have some invasion like in Mysore and things like that. Regardless of whether you're looking at Carnatic music or Hindustani music, there are four categories. One is classical style, that is solely based on the ragas. There's semi-classical, which is something like Thumri, Khayal, things like that. That is, it references the ragas, but it's a little bit more loose. You have folk music. I've highlighted folk music because we are very familiar with things like Chautal in Trinidad and in Guyana, Suriname, places where Indian diaspora have settled. And I have added in film and religious music. And the reason for that is film and religious music are really the drives of the diaspora culture, definitely in Trinidad. Because you would tend to find that that is the most heavily reproduced genre of music. Now, if we look at classical, and there's a reason I'm going to run through this quickly. Classical and semi-classical music, there's a reason why Indian music is said to be different from Western music. Those things no longer hold true in a complete sense, but I'll run through it very briefly. One is swar. Swar is the note, the sound. Now, when instruments are tuned by air, the swar is different. So the swar of steel pans prior to the use of strobes used to sound different from the swar of steel pans being tuned now. I attend every panorama, I listen to pan extensively, and the sound of the instruments tend to be very homogeneous based on the fact they're all being tuned with strobes, right? There's another element of Indian music called mean. Mean is when you stretch a note, and it's more possible if you use stringed instruments like guitar, sitar, things like that. And you can stretch notes in some wind instruments like trumpets and a few other instruments like that. There is one important other final thing called ghamak, and ghamak is an ornamental embellishment. Now, those of us who are trained in Western music understand what is ornamentation in music pieces. When you do compositions, there are ornaments that can be repeated, transposed, whatnot. And these are three very important elements in Indian music. And I want to introduce it here because I'm going to bring it back up later on when I discuss the pan. So if you look at, regardless of what the geographic location of the pan, whether it is Hindustani or Carnatic, it is very heavily influenced by instruments. The instruments, sitar, and Sulbahar, which is a bass sitar, all come from the Rudra Veena, which is a South Indian South Indian instrument. Tabla, which is prevalent in Trinidad, I would have highlighted things that is relevant to Trinidad. Tabla is a Persian instrument. It's not at all Indian. It comes from the Pakavaj drum, and when that was split, it formed a tabla. Santur, which we don't really hear a lot of, I think only know 2 santur players locally, is a Persian instrument. The sarod, which is sort of like a guitar type of thing, and you can stretch and get mean and gamak, and that is why it became popular in India, is an Afghan instrument. The harmonium, as everyone knows, is not an Indian instrument at all. It's Italian. It was brought in 1875 to India, and it was adjusted with the bellows. Instead of being foot control, they made it hand control. So that is an innovation that was done in India. The sarangi is also a gut instrument that is stringed and bowed, and that is why it falls within the ambit of Indian music, because it can produce meen, and that is from Nepal and Pakistan. Guitar, very popular in band music, like the Indian orchestras locally, things like that. Guitar straight out of Africa. The bansuri, which is a flute, that is an Indian instrument. The drum kit that we see in all Indian orchestras and many performances taking place locally, and of course in film music, not so much in religious music, is straight out of America. Synthesizers are also straight out of America. The dolak, which was brought to Trinidad by the indentured laborers, was actually influenced by the Mughal invasion of North India. So what I want to summarize here, these are the common instruments in Indian music, which we have already established. And Indian music, the instrumentation is very loose. It does not have to come from India. There is a wide open acceptance of anything that could produce those three elements that I mentioned earlier on, which is swar, meen, and kamak. So the Indians who came from India to Trinidad and Tobago, to the west, they came from something called the Ganganic Plain. That is, we're looking at Bihar, we're looking at Uttar Pradesh, we're looking at Bengal, and if you notice that orange part on the map, it's all North India. So everyone who came to Trinidad were very heavily influenced by North Indian musical style, and also the adoption and the adaptation of outside instruments to their musical needs. I want to get into connecting a couple very important dots that I think would lend in understanding in Indian music in Steelpan. The first is that the Indian indentureship occurred from 1845 to 1917, which means that indentureship finished before Steelpan made an advent. So all of the indentured Indians who were living in Trinidad, who had settled here, would have been witness to the development of Pan. The settlement patterns of the freed Indians, not the indentured Indians, overlapped with the post-emancipation settlements. And we're looking at areas such as Tunapuna, we're looking at St. James, we're looking at the east-west corridor, where the former indentured workers would have settled and where Pan would have started its gestation and development. The dolak, like I mentioned, was brought to Trinidad. The harmonium was brought to Trinidad in 1918 by the Naya Zamana Steel Orchestra, and 1918 is just 1 year after the end of indentureship. So the instrumentation that would have been used locally by local Indians would have been the dolak and the harmonium and other percussion instruments, but they would have been witness to Pan being developed at the same time. So the first Pan, the first 4-note Pan, came about in 1938, where a fellow named Victor Williams tuned 4 notes to the same tone of the QRC bells. And Indians living in town, everybody would have noticed and witnessed and cheered along with that. So eventually, during the formative years of pan being developed and pan influencing, you would have had bands forming. There are 4 particular bands that I want to highlight. I'm certain that there are more, but I was not able to get any information on them. In the 1950s, Tunapuna All Stars is the first band that started playing Indian music in Pan, which is natural because there's such a large settlement of descendants of indentured laborers as well as descendants of former African slaves. So Tunapuna All Stars were the avant-garde band. They spearheaded and started the whole thing about playing Indian music. But then you see, sound is sound and music is non-detectable unless you add words. So anything they played, nobody would know the difference anyway. In 1960s, you had the Saraswati Steel Orchestra. I could not find any pictures and I couldn't find any documentation particularly. However, I do have a hearsay that said that the Saraswati Steel Orchestra played at the wedding of Satmaraj. And they were hired by Bideh Sagan Maharaj to play at Satmaraj's wedding. When we truncate, we move on to the Samru Kids. In 1967, the band was formed, and they also played a heavy repertoire of Indian music. I couldn't find a picture of Samru Kids, however, so this is a picture of the Samru Jets. The metamorphosis and the growth of the band became Samru Jets after some time. And there's a wide gap. There's 33 years later, you have Nada Sangama Steel Orchestra. Now that is not to say, because my area is not the social background and social changes, but that is not to say that things were not happening in terms of East Indian influence in Pan, in regular Pansides, as well as individuals and other avenues during that 33 years. It just so happened that Nada Sangama was formed in the year 2000. So at this stage, I want to share with you a clip of Samru Jets playing, and I think I had already set my computer, so you could please just let me know if you're not hearing. Are you all hearing it? Yes? Is it being
Yes,
heard?
we hear.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, thanks. Right. So moving on from that clip of the Samru Jets, I want to focus in on Indian steel bands that actually act as ambassadors for Pan abroad. And there were 2 that I came across. That is the same Samru Jets in 1995. Let me just look at my notes. Right. In 1995, the Samru Jets performed at the Sri Satya Sai Baba World Music Conference, and they were accompanied by Rana Mohip. So when they went there, they would have played Sai Baba bhajans, and they would have played our local music, as well as, knowing Rana, they would have played some semi-classical music as well. In the year 2002, 2006, and 2007, Nada Sangama, which was formed in the year 2000, traveled to India. They've played in 2002 and 2006 in Mysore and 2007 in Delhi. And in 2005, the government of Martinique was celebrating 100 years of Indian arrival, and Nada Sangama also played there. So I want to share a clip of Nada Sangama playing in 2002. The audience at that time was in the Nada Mantapam was about 6,000 people, and this is just a clip of what it looked like. There are a couple of differences in Nada Sangama and their ambassadorship, the role that they took on behalf of Pan and Trinidad and Tobago when they did these trips to India. And these are the landmark achievements of Nada Sangama. They were the first band to manufacture steel pans in India. And the reason for that is the bases were too expensive to ship. So a contingency of members went ahead about 2 or 3 weeks before, sourced pans, sink pans, burn pans, tuned pans, and the rest of the band took the front and middle lines with them in the cargo, and they played, and that's how we ended up playing Pan in India. They were the first band to record a Pan CD in India. It was a very cramped accommodation, and we did track recording, but it was the first time Steelpan was recorded in India. They were also the first band to record Indian vocals. We had a guest vocalist, his name is Nival Jetlal, and he did vocals on the CD Shankaram. So it was the first time that someone had mentioned something about voice and pan, and I said there's a lot of voice and pan because this CD was done by Nada Sangama. The band also adopted Indian wear as their standard uniform. It wasn't donned just for performance. It was a general appearance of the band, regardless of racial background, black, white, Indian, Chinese. Everyone wore Indian wear as the standard band uniform for every single performance. And it was the only band that included Islamic melodies. Now in Trinidad and Tobago, there is a higher proportion of Sunni Muslims. There are some Shiites and 1 or 2 other subgroups of Muslims. And they're not big on music performance. It's really kept within a certain ambit, but Nada Sangama played Islamic melodies on the pan, and it was very well received. So I'm going to skip through about Indian music in pan because I think other persons are going to deal with that, and I'm going to go straight into notable individuals who have a certain level of achievement in pan itself. So the first person who you see on the left is Jit Samru, who was awarded an honorary PhD, and he is a legend. He's a legendary pan arranger. He arranged with Amoko Renegades and helped to steward that band to 9 Panorama wins, which at that time was a record. It's no longer a record, but for his contribution between 1982 to 1997, he was perhaps one of the most prominent persons to have arranged for a large band in Trinidad and Tobago. On the right of him is a gentleman by the name of Bobby Muhammad. Bobby Muhammad was from South, and he was able to take his band Guinness Cavaliers to a Panorama win in 1965. They placed second in 1966, and they placed first again in 1967, which means that in the non-Indian arena, both Bobby Muhammad and Jit Samru achieved a lot of success. And the young lady on the page at the bottom corner, her name is Shivana Raghunanan. She won Mastana Bahar first place in the year 2001 playing pan. Now Shivana had to experience a lot of opposition to her playing pan, and especially in an Indian talent forum such as Mastana Bahar, it definitely was an achievement that brought a lot of barriers down. Unfortunately, because the show folded, it no longer exists, that it can be showcased. From here, I want to go into my third outline, and that is the characteristics. I told you at the beginning, I'm going to speak of Indian regional, Indian steel bands, and the microtonal sounds in steel pan. So back again, I'm going back to the characteristics of North Indian music, where Trinidadians would have been influenced, and film music doesn't really fall into this consideration. But that gliding from one note to the next, which is an essential requirement for outside instruments to be adopted into Indian music. I'm going to speak about the production of meen on the pan, and the gamak, which is the ornamentation, I'm going to show you all an example of something called a jugalbandi, a call and answer that would have been done by Nada Sangama, showing gamak, and you would see some mean on it. Right. So, as I said, that Samru Jets and Nada Sangama played semi-classical, and in terms of Nada Sangama, they played classical music. And I want to highlight one element of the development of the sound in the steelpan, and that was in 1965, a tuner by the name of Bertie Marshall put the partial fifth on the side of the notes. And if anyone here is familiar with music, if you have the note C and you have 5 notes away from that, when you play the note, you're going to hear these microtones, the semitones between the principal note C and the 5th note away, which is G. And I'm going to illustrate a little bit more about that. If you look on the left, the shape of the note here, number 1 would be the principal note, that is the tonic note. So let us imagine that is the note C. On the side here where you see 5th note, we are going 5 notes up the scale to G. That means when you hit the stick in the middle of that note, it's going to resonate all the way through the spectrum to the 5th note. And then you would see the octave at the top and the bottom. That means there's a higher C, 1 octave higher. So also that sound is going to move up and down the breadth of that instrument and resonate all of the microtones, which would sample the 7th and the 9th, as the 9th being the octave again. So the design of the pan note, the tuning of the note, and the design of the instrument itself, if you look on the right, it's an all metallic instrument. Every time you hit a note and it begins to resonate and it carries through and it meets the 5th note, that sound vortex moves across the open space and it ignites other notes as well. So you have new sound vortices being produced. And in between that, you have mean being created continually, and it resonates all the way down the skirt of the instrument. So in the same way, I want to just go into my summary now. We understand, and I've illustrated, that Indian music as a genre is not dependent on Indian instruments. That's the first thing. The close proximity, the cultural influence, and the shared space of the Trinidadian society result in inevitable inclusion and representation of both Indian music and Indian diaspora descendants. The rate of the influence in terms of interaction, it has been increasing through pan-in-school programs and between more tolerance and synergy between all of the groups. And I want to close off by saying, in the same way, Indian music has adopted several instruments that were not originated in India. It's by no stretch of the imagination that steelpan is probably one of the best instruments to incorporate when playing Indian music, leaving aside film music, of course. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening to my presentation and open myself for questions.
Savitri, thank you so very much. That was incredibly detailed and informative and so very interesting.
Thank you.
It was really exceptional. Due to time, we're going to move on to our third speaker.
No problem.
Right, so I'm going to introduce Kenneth Basad.
Yep.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Kenneth. I'd like to introduce and say you were born in Surrey Village, Lupino, Trinidad.
Yes,
And
I
he
was.
was inspired by his friend and neighbor, steelpan legend Jit Samaru, to play the only musical instrument invented in the 20th century. So welcome, sir, to our program. You can speak for 15 to 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. A wonderful presentation by the person before there. I was born in a little village on the Lupino Road called Surrey. That was the hometown of Dr. Jit Samaru. From a small boy growing up, I always was fascinated with the Steelpan. Even attending high school, Samaru Jets had came during our morning assembly and they did a performance there. And when I saw that, I said, I would love to do that someday, and I was fortunate enough as an adult to get the opportunity to do some transport work for the band. The band had a contract at the Hilton every Sunday, playing poolside, but they didn't have any transport. So I was the driver that took them to the Hilton and back home every Sunday. I did that for over 25 years. And during that time, I would sit there poolside and just observe, listen to what they were doing. And Jit, he was doing some music for TSTT at the time. They had a little sports club around where Kedona used to be there. And he asked me if I wouldn't like to learn to play. So I said, well, why not, So I took the opportunity and I went with him a couple of times. And I grew more in love with it. I eventually bought a pan for my kids to learn to play because I tell myself, this is something I would like my children to learn to play. Unfortunately, they didn't show no interest in learning to play it. So I tell myself I already spent my money. I would like to learn to play this thing. So I started playing the pan. And from that, I started playing for different bands for Panorama. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to go to Canada and to New York to play for 2 weddings, East Indian weddings at that. That was a wonderful experience for me. But locally here, I do gigs whenever the opportunity comes. I'm always open. I play all different genres of music, by the way. East Indian is one of my major genres. I have a repertoire right now, could be close to about 150 Indian songs, East Indian songs, Bollywood, from the 1950s all the way up to current. I also play a little soca, reggae, Latin, gospel. So any occasion that comes up, basically, I'm always available for that. I know much more I could say, but I think Dr. Kumar had some videos that I had sent him. I'm not sure if you want to play any of them now. If you all have any questions.
So what we're going to do, Navin is going to play these short video clips, just about 1 minute each, I think. And then, Kenneth, we like you to comment after each video.
Sure, no
give
problem.
context something, right? So Navin, go ahead.
You have to give permission to share.
You are co-host, Navin. So I
Okay.
don't.
Yeah,
can't share.
it now comes.
Okay. We have some questions for Dr. Savitri, so I hope you would stay on, because some of the speakers have to leave.
Or should I
That's
go
why.
just go through the chat and answer the questions as I see them come up?
Yeah, but we'll give you the ample time.
Okay, all right. I'll
Yeah.
hold on. I'll take off my mic
Yeah.
and just wait.
Yeah.
I'll sit in.
Right, thanks. So Kenneth, while we're waiting on that
Yeah.
video, right. Where do you see yourself next 10, 20 years from here with respect to pan playing?
Well, my aim actually is to secure a regular contract somewhere. hopefully a East Indian restaurant or something like that.
Right.
And just playing. I love to play.
Yeah.
So whatever opportunity comes up, I am always accepting. I always make myself available. Sometimes the costs don't even factor in. I just love to play.
Very good. So good. So maybe Shalima, we could invite him to some of our occasions. ICC, we do have events.
Definitely.
Now that I have your contact and I know you. So on the average, how often you get bookings? Okay.
Oh,
I think something is coming up. Yeah.
okay.
Shakira, we're not getting sound, so you have to say share audio first before you can play the video. Mm. Right. Good. Very good. Excellent, Kenneth. So can you tell us where that performance was done and give us some context?
Okay. The quality might not be all that good because it was done with my phone from my wife. In the Palki restaurant at Piaco Plaza in Aruca. That was during the Valentine's weekend there that recently went. They had a buffet style dinner and I was given the opportunity to entertain their guests. I really, really was appreciative of that opportunity. The Sahani Rat, you hear me there, Doc?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the Sahani Rat was the song that played there, and that is the unofficial Indian national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago. Anywhere you go, people always ask for this song. It always goes down well, regardless of the occasion.
So how do people get in contact with you? You have a website, a
I'm
Facebook?
on Facebook, yeah. I'm on Facebook as Kenneth Prasad. I usually post videos almost every week.
Right.
Even though I don't go out and play, I do videos from home and I post them out. I
Very
got
good.
a lot of response sometimes, but no gigs. But it don't matter with me. As I said before, I love to play.
On the
Um,
average, how often
some
you get bookings?
for the month, sometime 2, 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah. Something I wanted to mention though, as we are on the topic of Indian music on Steelpan, regardless of what is the occasion or where the venue is, I always try to stick in an Indian song or two. As I told you before, I play a lot of soca, reggae, different genres. But regardless of the occasion, I always try to fit in a couple Indian songs. One occasion I remember clearly, I was playing at a bar and everybody lying in, the soca, played some soca, some old school soca, some reggae and stuff. And I just played two Indian songs. And someone approached me and they asked me, why you play that Indian song? I said, well, is not one ethnic group that's spending money in the bar. You have a lot of Indians in the bar spending their money, and I surely would have loved to hear an Indian song too. And a couple of the Indian people that were lying at the bar, they came and they told me how they felt, very appreciative of the fact that I could play something that they could relate to also. So that was I always try to fit in a song or two, regardless of the occasion.
So that is commendable, Kenneth, that you have made a concerted effort to really emphasize the diversity, because we are multi-ethnic, multiracial society.
Definitely.
And we have to celebrate this. We can't
Definitely.
deny any one aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Navin, maybe we could have the next item. So are you training anybody?
I have a 2-year-old grandson. I'm training him right now.
Okay.
That's about it.
And
A
you
lot
have
of
been
people ask, but I do, to be honest with you, I am not, how to say, musically educated. I don't have no degree or anything like that in music.
okay.
So
But
I
you
don't
have
want
been
to play
trained by the master himself, by the legend.
more from observation than anything else, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will pay this item. Okay, Navin, I think Kenneth can give us some context to this rendition.
This was actually done home at my house. I have a little room there where I used to practice in, and as I say, I usually just do videos and post on Facebook, hoping that someone will see it and give me a call. And this was one of those songs that Sometimes a song just come to you, you know, and you hear it and you just love the melody and the vibe of that song. This was one of those songs. I just wanted to mention here, right? Once a occasion came along where a friend of mine was doing they had a puja up at their home in Sani Grande. So I told her I would come and play some music for her when the prayers finish and people are eating. I'll come and play some music for her. But so happened that I went up a bit early and the prayers were still going on. So while I was setting up, the pundit was sitting there and looking at me kind of funny, you know, what is Pan Man coming here to do, boy? So the girl told him that I came to play some music for them while they were eating after the prayers. And when he got up to go and put down the jandy with the girl and her husband, he told me I could play a song or two while they were doing that part. So I said, no problem. And I played Ekapiad Kanagamahe, and I played Sohani Rat, I think it was, yeah. And when he came back after that, every little intermission he had in the puja, he told me to play a song. He was so impressed with what he had heard. And that was a really, really good feeling for me. Because I try my best to spread the Indian culture wherever I play.
Good. But we definitely want you to be in our group, you know. We have an ICC group that we do all kinds of things, educational and cultural and liming. So we'll invite you from now on. You have to be part of that group, man, because our main mission is to promote Indian Indo-Caribbean culture.
All right.
Right. Shalima, Navin, you can queue up the next item. Shalima, we're not hearing you, I think. Yeah. Very good. Excellent. So where was this again? Palki restaurant?
Yeah, that's at Palki's at Piaco Plaza.
Yes.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that the owner of the establishment was there that night, and he showed a lot of interest in having me on on a regular basis. But so far, I haven't gotten that call. So fingers crossed, hoping something comes up sometime soon.
Yeah. Good. But so maybe I missed that part of your presentation, but do you play in a band or just solo?
No, I used to play for Panorama, more or less, all over with different bands. More the bands that Jit used to arrange for. I used to play with those bands. Not Renegades by chance. The other bands more east of Aruka, like Arima and those areas, up to Napuna. I played at the Exodus for 1 year. Yeah, the Nara Sangama steel band that was from El Dorado. The last CD they did, I played on that CD with them. They had some shortage of players at that point in time, and the manager, Mr. Ramnarayan, had asked me to come and to fill that gap. So I went down and we did a CD at the community center there. That was the last CD I think the band had done before they were.
So maybe we'll play this last item from you because we're watching the time and we have two
Yeah,
other
yeah,
speakers.
definitely.
So Navin, do we
It
have
was a pleasure
another?
having you all for being here.
Well,
Man.
it's a
Thanks a lot.
pleasure having
Yeah.
you, and we definitely like to stay in contact.
Sure.
I think Navin is going to play one item again, the last item. So that's the same. good. Great. Thanks for
Oh,
accepting our invitation. Shalima is trying to, something is wrong with her audio, so we have to take up the slack.
okay.
Sure.
Thank you. So,
Right. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. So we do apologize on behalf of Shalama. She is having some technical difficulties. So again,
Okay.
Kenneth, thank you so much
No
for
problem.
participating in our program. So
Thanks for having me.
definitely, and we'll definitely keep in contact.
Okay then.
Right. So I'll move on to our next speaker. And this is Keon Delas, a performer, composer, conductor, producer, attorney, and Steelpan music lecturer at the University of the West Indies. Quite a lot of hats. He has arranged music for pan bands such as the Sforzata Steel Orchestra. And we want to welcome him to our program. So welcome, sir. You can speak for 15 to 20 minutes.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and thanks very much for having me. And just confirming that you are seeing my presentation on screen, yes?
Yes, definitely.
yes.
All right, great. Again, thank you all for having me. A pleasure to be here. I'd like to start off my presentation showing this video of the National Steel Symphony Orchestra featuring Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, a colleague of mine actually at the University of the West Indies. He teaches Indian classical music there. And this is their performance of, as Kenneth was saying, the national anthem of Indian music in Trinidad and Tobago, Suhani Rat from the movie Dulari. So that was Dr. Maharaj, accompanied by the National Steel Symphony Orchestra. And I'm proud to say that I'm a past member of the National Steel Symphony Orchestra myself, and there it was conducted by Mr. Jessel Murray, the head of department at the Department of Creative and Festival Arts at UWI St. Augustine. And as you may have seen, this song was arranged and transcribed for the Steelpan by Amrit Samaru, who is the son of the honorary Dr. Jit Samaru. And the music, of course, I started off with this to show Indian music in Steelpan in music of the Indian diaspora, and how it's prevalent, of course, here in Trinidad and Tobago. And to continue with my presentation, I wanted to ask, what is culture and what is our culture here in Trinidad and Tobago? Now, firstly, culture is difficult to describe, but a sort of definition that I like to use is saying that although culture is hard to define, it can be described as the ideas, beliefs, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. And I would like to focus on the word customs because music is a part of the custom of any society and any culture. And therefore, our culture here in Trinidad and Tobago entails, of course, because we have such a large Indian diaspora here, Indian music is a part of our culture. And of course, definitely because the steel pan was invented here in Trinidad and Tobago, that of course as well is a part of our culture. So the amalgamation of the two has been quite inevitable. They are both recognized as part of Trinbagonian culture and heritage. So they come together quite harmoniously in that regard. And that's why we have national entities, maybe the National Sea Symphony Orchestra, the National Philharmonic, all the national groups, the music groups that is, you would find that they do play Indian music at some point in their repertoire, in their performances, etc. And we also have competitions. I'm glad that Dr. Rampersad would have touched on these things earlier as well. We have Mastana Bahar, and for years we have actually had panists perform and take part in the Mastana Bahar competitions. And of course, Chutney Soca Monarch, whether it be having pan in the music productions of the Chutney Soca artists or on stage live performances with them, again, we see pan being integrated in Indian music here in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I'd like to direct you to the picture that I have on screen here, the logo for the Chutney Soca Monarch, because it's very, I don't want to use the word interesting because it's sort of commonplace and it was just a natural flow of things, that the logo actually encompasses elements of a steel pan as well as elements of Indian dance, Indian culture here. And this is representative. This is the logo used for the Chutney Soca Monarch. So again, going back to my previous statement that it's a natural flow and amalgamation of the two to have steel pan being used in music of the Indian diaspora. It's just a very natural thing. We also would have the steel pan being used in festivals, both secular and sacred, such as Diwali, and for, of course, celebration of, the Nagar, for the celebration of Diwali, as you saw Devin would have performed there. I myself would have performed, many other steel panists would have performed at the Diwali Nagar. And then definitely for religious ceremonies and such as weddings as well, Hindu weddings, graduations, corporate events, we have the steel pan playing Indian music at all these various events. And many of these events are put on by members of the Indian diaspora or are entirely encompassed as Indian culture. And they are not devoid of the steel pan as well. Also, you would have seen by the previous presenters would have demonstrated very well how they have all at some point been using the steel pan in these various types of events. So I just jumped to my other slide here. I wanted to talk about why it's so easy for the steel pan to be a part of music of the Indian diaspora in Trinidad and Tobago. Firstly, the pros, all 12 pitches found in Western music, and of course, we understand that Indian music will be considered Eastern music if we're using those labels and terms, but the 12 pitches of Western music would be found in Indian music, although Indian music would have more tones being involved. But primarily, these 12 pitches can be found in the music, and the 12 pitches found on the steel pan enables the steel pan to be able to play Indian music. There's also the compatibility of solfege and sargam, that's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, in Indian music being synonymous with do, re, mi, solfege in Western music. And this compatibility allows for the playing of the music, and also particularly for improvisation, where we have a jugalbandi as well, the call and answer happening, many times using sargam, etc. It's easy for the steel pan to answer or be part of this type of performance. And finally, the percussive nature of the steel pan. The steel pan, of course, is a percussion instrument. And the percussive nature of the instrument and how it's played using mallets, sticks, the steel pan is very readily able to play complex rhythmic patterns, and such as you will find in tals in music, in Indian music, that is. And we do find a lot of complex tals happening. The steel pan can readily keep up and play these rhythmic patterns as well, which again lends to its compatibility with Indian music. The minor drawback, I would say, would be the steel pan's sort of inability to perform inflections or the bending of pitches. I mean, like Dr. Barampasad was speaking of earlier. Now, the steel pan can bend pitches. There is a possibility, but the impracticality of doing that during a performance is the hindrance. And also there's the possible compromisation of the tuning of the instrument, because the techniques that you would have to use to bend the notes while you're playing can hamper and harm the tuning of the steel pan. So that's one thing that we wouldn't be able to perform on the steel pan while playing Indian music. However, I also do recognize that Dr. Rampasad would have spoken about the microtones in music. When I would have done my master's in music, many panists there, we would have performed with Middle Eastern ensembles, playing Middle Eastern music, which also have microtones. And a friend of mine actually created and tuned a steel pan with microtones so that the pan can fit perfectly in this type of music. However, so similarly, it would be great to have that ability to be playing in Indian music, but it's not easily accomplished. However, generally, the pan can fit perfectly into Indian music. I would like to now play a performance by the Shiv Sangeet School of Music, which is actually owned and run, directed by Dr. Shivanand Maharaj, my colleague who you saw earlier. And this performance featured myself. My stage name is Cadence, and we performed Churaliahe Tumne Jodilko at the Diwali Nagar celebration in 2021. And here in this performance, I would like you all to pay attention to the Jugalbandi and the improvisation that is happening with the various instruments in the ensemble, also the steel pan, and how we, the amalgamation of the instruments, the tihahi, how the song ended, etc., to demonstrate the ability of the steel pan to play the complex rhythmic patterns and also to be able to play the melody of the song that we are playing. So this is from the popular Bollywood song Churaliahe. Yeah, so that was our performance, and I particularly like having to be part of the Jiggle Bundy to respond to whatever was being played first. So it's the call and answer happening, and you have to be able to hear and replay exactly what is being played directly on spot at the point in time. So it ensures that your ears are good to pick up on what notes the leader is playing, so that you could replicate it on spot. And again, it shows the seamless integration of the steel pan in Indian music being played. Finally, just to wrap up, I just wanted to mention quickly again the types of Indian music that we have primarily in the diaspora here in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, there's classical Indian music, which of course would encompass many ragas. There's Bollywood music, songs like Churali Aaye Tumne Jo Dil Ko, Malhari, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, from these various movies, Rambi and Latan, all the popular ones as well. We have religious music as well, bhajans that people play also on the steel pan. Jai Lakshmi, Kalyani Maya, that is one of my favorites as well, which I would have also played on pan before. And then of course there's Chutney Soka, the Ravi Bees and the Ricky Jais and those types of music as well, which would easily be played on pan and encompasses pan as well in various performances. So just to show the category of music that we have, the category of Indian music, categories of Indian music that we have readily here in Trinidad and Tobago, that the steel pan also is a part of or plays in numerous instances. And in the interest of time, of course, to end my presentation, I would just like to share this video of myself performing Churali Aaye at the UWI St. Augustine's graduation ceremony in 2019. This is a good demonstration of Indian music being performed in a graduation ceremony in a big event such as this. And again, as previous presenters would have mentioned, like Mr. Prasad as well, you would be surprised to find how Indian music can be appreciated in so many various settings. I myself, as a solo performer, when I perform at various events, weddings, just restaurants, try to play some Indian music, and people are very appreciative.
Okay, Kian, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I think he has some internet issues.
Yes. It seems
So yeah, because I wanted to ask him. Okay, he's back. It seems.
Oh, sorry, what did I cut out for a bit?
Yes, yes. So go ahead, resume.
Okay. All right.
Ian, great performance. In the interest of time,
All
you
right,
know,
thanks.
we have to
Sure.
end, but it was, yeah, it hurts me because I am enjoying it. It's so wonderful. It's fantastic. But before I know you have to go, I have two questions.
Sure.
Number one, what is the percentage of Indians, Indo-Trinidadians, learning to play pan in your classes and so on, and what is being done to encourage more?
I don't think we have to encourage more, maybe. Let me just say that. There's a high percentage. A lot of persons interested in the steel pan also coming to the University of the West Indies are of East Indian descent. And there are some amazing players out there coming in, some young ones coming up as well who are showing some immense talent. And so I think that we have seen an increase in the both exposure and interest in playing the steel pan. So I hope it continues to grow, of course, across the Indian diaspora. But I have high hopes that it is starting to blossom a lot more.
Right. And final question, any Islamic genre of music being played like qasidas?
Not readily, as I think Dr. Rampazad would have mentioned previously, sorry. The Islamic religion doesn't always foster or music playing as part of the thing, especially here in Trinidad and Tobago as well. However, I would say that there are many Muslims who take part in Panorama and great arrangers like Akinola Senon, as well as why is his name slipping me right now? The arranger for Desperados. But in terms of playing Islamic music, I don't see it being done really. I guess, yeah, that's the short answer to it.
Yes, good. So, we would have liked to spend more time with you, but our time is drawing close and we still have a speaker.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you all for having me again.
Shakira, thank you.
Kian, thank you so very much. And I love the integration of all three instruments and the transition from your call and response into the three instruments playing together. That was really beautiful. So thank you again, Kian. And ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome our fifth and final speaker, who is Clyde Weatherhead, a lawyer, educator, author, and commentator. He played the tenor pan in To the Pune All-Stars and Turban Starland. He has personal knowledge of Jet Samaru and the Samaru Jet. So I want to welcome you, sir. You can speak for 15 to 20 minutes.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. Let me just start with the you do the slides, or should I have to?
Pardon me, I didn't get that.
Are you sharing a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I sent it, but
Okay, so you clicked on.
we didn't get it, so you would have to share it, Clyde. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you seeing the green button down below?
Yeah, 1 second.
All right.
Yes, screen.
It says disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah.
Right, so you are co-host, so you
No, just this. Anybody, you can share now. If there's somebody near you who can assist, that would be better. Kalima, we're still not hearing you. Sorry.
okay. Clyde,
Yeah.
you clicked on the share button down below
Yeah.
at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
It's a green button with the arrow.
Yeah, so, but I'm not seeing it.
Okay, so what you have to do, go back to your computer and click on the PowerPoint that you wanted to share, and then come back to Zoom and you click on the share button. You ought to be able to see the application window open there. All right, would you like to continue speaking through with this?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Let me just do a little bit of history in terms
Yeah,
of
you might just have to talk to.
the Steelpan in Paget. And the one second.
Okay, sure. Yes. So while you're trying to get it through, you can go ahead and
It's
Yeah.
2 steps. Open the PowerPoint and go to the share screen. That
Yeah.
symbol at the bottom, a green arrow. Or you may just have to read from the
Yeah,
PowerPoint.
sure. Okay. Yeah. So I think Dr. Ramprasad mentioned two bands, Saraswati Steel Orchestra and Tunapuna All Stars. So the current Tunapuna All Stars is actually the second incarnation of Tunapuna All Stars. In the 1950s, as far as I'm aware, the Saraswati Steel Orchestra began in Paget. It was located on Mohammed Street, and it was led by Asghar Ali Mohammed. Saraswati Steel, they played only Indian music on pan. And they made two recordings on the Cook label. One was Kisi Ka Dil and the Indian national anthem on, well, you know, in those days, 45s at both sides. And the second one was Hai Apna Dil and Masti Bara Aishama. That was in 1960. However, like many steel bands at that time, the band broke up in the 1960s, and some of the former members of the Saraswati Steel Orchestra formed a band called Tunapuna All Stars, which also played Indian music. This was the first incarnation of Tunapuna All Stars, which was led by Ramdas Lachman, and it was located on Lower Mohammed Street in Paget. The Fazal Hussain was elected as captain of Tunapuna All Stars, and he moved the band to the back of his home on Paget Main Road. And he also changed the name to Starland. And in 1970, then Prime Minister Dr. Eric Williams was doing a tour of Panyards, and he went to Starland's Panyard, which was at Hussein's home. And the rumor is that Hussein told his son to leave the latrine open, so Dr. Williams didn't have too much of a pleasant experience at that Panyard. And Dr. Williams, in fact, moved the band in terms of he provided land, a piece of land on Railway Road, Tunapuna, next to the Tunapuna Post Office. That's the road that leads to the market from Paget Main Road. And so the band moved there. The band also got a sponsor in terms of Turban Curry factory in El Dorado and became known as Turban Starland. Turban Starland took part in the East Zone Panorama and played on the road for Carnival in Tunapuna. The band also performed at various events like Orisha celebrations in Lavantil, Ramlila celebrations in St. Augustine, and at fundraising events I held at schools and in communities. Steelpan Starland won the Tunapuna Panorama in 1973 and reached the East Zone Panorama Finals in Port of Spain in 1976. I remember playing for that panorama when we were in the finals in Queen's Park, Savannah. And I, in fact, finished learning the tune on the bus on the way to Port of Spain because we were involved at UE in a strike that went from 1976 into 1977 at that time. Steelpan Starland itself folded up in 1978. And part of that had to do with a little tussle with a prospective new sponsor who wanted the band to change its name to Circlites. And some of the members of that Steelpan Starland then formed Tunapuna All Stars, which was the second incarnation of Tunapuna All Stars. At one point in the early life of Tunapuna All Stars, I myself was a captain, and well, we had several members take on the captaincy of the band. That was in 1978. The band basically started with a few instruments from the former Starland, and the majority of the instruments for the band were purchased by members' funds and also funds raised by fundraising activities. The band established its panyard initially behind the Tunapuna Community Center, which is along the bus route. And then with some objection from persons running the community center, we had to move a little westward along the bus route into, there's a huge recreation ground for the government school. And so we had to establish the band there. And because of where we were close to the bus route and we didn't have any facility to secure the instruments were stored for a while under one of the members' home on Page Main Road, so that every night we were going to practice, we literally had to go down Page Main Road and bring up the instruments, including the drum set, to the bus route in order to practice. We, however, landed a job as the resident steel band at Holiday Inn in Port of Spain. And at that location, while we were playing there, we met an official of the priority bus route who arranged for a concrete floor to be laid down for the band behind the Tunapuna Fire Station, where the band is still located. So in 1979, we went on the road because we had acquired sufficient instruments, pan racks, etc. And playing on the road for Carnival, the band established a tradition of having to be told by the police at midnight on Carnival Tuesday to stop playing because somewhere around 11 o'clock in the night, we would station the band no longer up and down the Eastern Main Road, but near the traffic light at the top of Page Main Road, which is just over the road from the police station. So close to 12 o'clock, the police would generally come and stop us because there would be people dancing and so on in the road. And that was the end of Carnival. The band stateside also had a full repertoire of Indian songs and other music, which we played at Holiday Inn, at Hindu weddings, including weddings of 2 members of the band itself, and at cooking nights, at Diwali celebrations, bazaars, and other community events in Tunapuna and outside of Tunapuna. At one occasion, we also played at the Indian High Commissioner's residence. Now, in those days, there was hardly a weekend that we were not playing somewhere, in a bloco, in a bazaar, in some school activity, and different places. And we also played twice on Indian Variety, a show on Trinidad and Tobago television. And unfortunately, after the coup in 1990, the tapes of those appearances on Indian Variety were lost, so we were not able to get them from TTT to have them available. As an unsponsored band, Tunapuna All-Stars had to raise all the funds for everything and to meet all the expenses. The members of the band organized various fundraising events, bazaars, etc. I remember on one occasion having to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning counting the coins from the bazaar that we had to be able to deposit it in the bank the next day. The band was able to construct a concrete and steel structure, which is still occupied. And that was largely due to the fact that we had a steady job at Holiday Inn. First, we started on Sundays, then they asked us to play on Sundays and Wednesdays as well. Over the years, the stateside would, like I said, would play at blockoramas, school and community events and concerts every weekend. Tunapuna All-Stars also played at the road for Carnival in Tunapuna. And in later years, we played for the Charades Parade of the Bands in Port of Spain, and later participated in panorama competitions in different years. In 2019, the band played in the panorama, and that was the 40th anniversary of the band on the road. Although it started in 78, like I said, in 79, we were on the road for the first time. Now, I just wanted to correct something in terms of an interaction between Tunapuna All-Stars and Dr. Jit Samaru. Recently, in an online post commenting on the 75th birth anniversary of Dr. Samaru, I mentioned that at a night when we were practicing at the Prantent, a vehicle pulled up and someone came in, and it was Jit. In fact, the person who came that night was Mr. Amral Khan. And he came to try and encourage the band to go on an overseas tour, which he said he would sponsor and so on. And he brought with him an arranger called Stephen from Princeton, who is the person who in fact taught us La Bamba. And that tune, La Bamba, when we played it at St. Augustine Girls Bazaar a couple of weeks later, that's the first time we were playing anywhere and got an encore, because the tune was so well arranged. I've heard bigger bands play that tune and hardly an applause when they were finished. But we did interact with Jet Samaru and with the Samaru Jets and other bands in which Jet was involved on several occasions, because like I said, almost every weekend we were playing out somewhere. And on one occasion, we played in Surrey Village because we were asked to come there by Jet's family. And it was a location, I think it is where the current band that is led by Jet's brother, Supernovas, I think is where they are located. But at that time, it was kind of a ruin of an old building in Surrey Village when we played there. And some of our members in Tunapuna All-Stars, many of them grew up in Paje. I'm from Tunapuna myself, and some of them were from primary school in the Aramalaya Presbyterian Church in Tunapuna, where Jit and his siblings also attended church. And while attending that Presbyterian church in Tunapuna, Jit, who had started playing in Lever Canbule's steel orchestra, he met a gentleman who was involved in the church called Langdon White, who literally taught JIT music. And someone called Fitzroy Gaja became the manager of the Samaru Kids, which later became the Samaru Jets, and they played in Hilton. And the earlier speaker who said he used to transport the band to the Hilton, that was where they were playing at the Hilton at that time. So the Tunapuna All Stars is now in its 46th year of existence. And the band consisted mainly of members from Paje, from Tunapuna. When the band was started, I was a student at UE in the Faculty of Agriculture. And in fact, the band had a couple of my classmates, one from Antigua and others from different parts of Trinidad and Tobago, who were in the band. Later on, we started by saying we were not going to participate in Panorama because literally Panorama was reducing steel bands to playing one tune. And we went on the road and we played a variety of music. I remember one year we played Uncle Crazy, that song by the Calypsonian Crazy. And that was the first time that I played bass on the road. In fact, most of the members of Tunapuna All Stars didn't play a single instrument. They played different instruments because, like I say, our repertoire was, any night we were in practice and we said, let's run down the board, we would be playing at least 20, 25 tunes. So to be able to play that gig in Holiday Inn and play on the road, we had a variety of music, including Indian music, like we played on the Indian variety show and at weddings in Paje and other places. We also had, coming out of the band, several smaller bands, including the Nada Sangama band, which was led by Vijay Hazari, who was one of the founding members of Tunapuna All Stars. Another founding member, who is now the current captain of the band, had also started a small band over the highway opposite the Coca-Cola factory. And they were playing Indian music and other music. Shivana Ragunanan, she played in the band for a while, and she's the daughter of one of the founding members, Dinesh Ragunanan, who also played bass in the band. So Tunapuna All Stars, in its current incarnation, is the second incarnation of Tunapuna All Stars. The original Tunapuna All Stars came out of the Saraswati band, and Tunapuna All Stars came out of Turban Starland. So that is the history and the relations with other bands, including like with JIT and other people involved in PAN. It was widely established because of that period in the 70s into the 80s, that there was so much interaction on a weekend that bands were playing for each other at events that they held, either at their panyard or in their community. So we were always involved in playing with other bands and sharing experiences. I myself managed a single pan band from Maracas called Voices for 2 years. And we ended up playing in Forzata with our instruments, one panorama. So that was a very strange experience that we actually had to take our pans from Maracas, go down after practice into Forzata with our single pan instruments. I was playing a single second at that time. And we played in the panorama with Forzata with our instruments. So we actually integrated two bands into one for that panorama. So those are some nice experiences. And then when Voices went to play in Port of Spain for one carnival, we were playing for the Children's Mass on Saturday. We were playing at Villa Coup on Sunday. We were playing on the road for Juve and Monday night and Tuesday. And because most of the members of that band were young people and female, we could not have the bands being carried to play for 2 whole days or almost 4 days. And so I went to JIT at Renegade Spaniard to ask him if he could loan us, or if they could loan us a rack so that we could use the fans on the road. And they did. And in fact, JIT also suggested, well, look, there's an apartment next door where we could store the bands, which we did. And that's another aspect of cooperation among bands that continues to exist. And in terms of JIT himself, his kind of generosity of spirit, which he shared. In fact, I just want to remind people that before JIT was the arranger for Renegades, the brother of Bobby Mohammed, who was Selwyn Mohammed, was the arranger for Renegades. And JIT took over from him at a certain point.
Wow, that's a wonderful memories and wonderful information, Clyde.
Yes, first-hand historical account. So
Definitely.
I have time is against us because we have passed 5 o'clock. I just have if Dr. Rampasad Kion has any question responses to any of the questions in the chat, but one question that any one of you can venture to ask is why are there not many Indo-Trinidadians playing pan, and what can be done to increase this percentage? Yeah, go ahead, anybody.
Well, Dr. Kumar, I don't think it's not many people of Indian descent who are not playing pan. There's a lot
I agree.
of pan
There is a
players
lot.
all over the country playing pan, whether it's in schools, whether it's in school bands, whether it's in the big bands in Panorama, and solo performers. They're all over. So in a real sense, the declaration of the pan as the national instrument is a reality in terms of the participation of the population in the playing of the pan.
Yeah, but percentage-wise, if you look at
Okay,
it.
so
I can't
I
give you a
want to-
percentage, but it's a large amount.
First of all, no one has checked the demographic percentage of racial background because we have an increase in mixed race citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So a question that is worded in that way is going to be very difficult to ascertain. However, Pan Trinbago has 10,000 registered pan players. That is the first thing. The second thing is pan in schools was started in 1991. And just like if you set a ball to roll at the top of the hill, as it goes down, it will pick up momentum. So you have to be aware of there are so many persons of East Indian descent or mixed race descent who are involved in pan, plus there are regular citizens who are also adopting East Indian melodies. And as I mentioned, I have an aversion to melody being just melodic on its own and something being labeled as this is what it is. It must be Indian. It's this, it's that, right? So there are a lot of pan players who come from East Indian descent households in Trinidad and Tobago, but there's no tabulation of how many there are, and there are a whole lot in schools as well. So I don't think that that type of question would be easily addressed unless we went to some sort of research body.
Yeah, good. So, Keon, any final comment you want to make before we close? Because we are past the time.
No, I just agree on the same thing. And yeah, I mean, the ball has been rolling. So many people, just the entire population, no matter the demographic, is just so involved in Steelpans now. And I guess probably being at the forefront of education, being an educator myself, I think I just have a little more access to seeing particularly because I'm an educator in the field of Steelpan. So I think I'm just able to see more how wide that demographic is. And it's really all encompassing. Everybody's playing the Steelpan now and everybody's good at it and great at it. Yeah, so I'm just grateful to see how it's continuing to grow and cross borders, so to speak.
Okay, good. So we'll close now, Shaki, because
I just wanted to add that I so love pan music. My daughter also played for Republic Bank Exodus, so it really is a wonderful instrument. So we want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend and to participate. And we want to thank all the speakers for giving freely of your time, your experience, your knowledge, your skills, and your expertise. And on behalf of Shalom, I want to thank you all for being here. As we've said earlier, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. And our topic next Sunday will be part 4 of our Living Legends and Icons series featuring Sylvia Gilari Perez of Belize. So we want to thank Dr. Kumar Mahabir and his team. And please visit, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. I am Shakira Mohammed of Trinidad and Tobago saying goodbye. May God bless you all. Dhanyavad.